What is going on? We got the OGs in the chat handing out them bangers, emote bangers, king emotes, fractal emotes. Let's get some stronks. Stronk emote, stronk. In answer to your question you just asked me, Cooper, yes, that sounds good. Do that. I think that'll actually work really well for this.
Mr. 2-Bit Jason, sir. Check your Discord messages.
Indeed. All right. Kyle said it. I thought you said emo banger for a second. I'm sitting across from the emo banger.
Hey, that's
Cooper.
me.
Yeah, Cooper, you were.
In fact, I had Matt listening to emo this morning.
You did. You did, in fact. Yeah, I woke up this morning to 2 fantastic links from my good friend, Pooper Brooks. Very much enjoyed those. One of them was Dreg. I think that's what I'm going to call him. I'm going to call him Dreg.
Dreg?
J-Reg. Yeah. Yeah, he it was this really interesting video. Maybe this is something we could post in the sporting listeners group. If you want to have the actual link to the video we were talking about, then you got to join. The emo, I thought it unalived itself. From this guy Dreg, as I'm going to call him, he talked about the autism schizophrenia spectrum being like the only spectrum that matters, and laterality versus verticality, and it was actually like really interesting kind of philosophical take on some ideas, but it was delivered in this fantastic Zoomer spirit, just kind of taking every opportunity possible to give the finger to the naive boomer idealism, and with its science and its peer review and such things. So yeah, we'll throw that link in the Discord, and if you guys want to see that, you can go to subscribestar.com/kingpilled. You get that among other things. Jason, 2-Bit Podcast Jason.
What's
Look
up?
at that. I like this. I like this spur of the moment thing here. Also because I've got a whole bunch of notes written down here. I don't usually write notes before a show, but this one had me going, so I had to write some notes down. And I know that Cooper has a hard out.
Oh, Johnson.
Yeah. Cooper has a hard out, and so maybe Jason can wind up filling some of that space, or maybe I just wind up filling it myself.
I feel space.
Mm-hmm. You do very well. I've got I'm just hearing everything on the left side here. Is that?
Yeah, I think you've got like your laptop or your computer mic on or something like that, because I'm still hearing everything right now. Jason, did you mute?
Hang on.
Are you talking to me?
Is Jason on the correct mic? He sounds off.
There we go.
That's better.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah. Now we lost your camera. I don't know if those two things are mutually exclusive. I'm hearing both of you guys only in the left channel. If it's just me, then that's fine. It could be an AirPods thing, but I don't know if there's an audio thing.
I hear you in both sides, so
I don't know why my camera's gone.
That's okay. You're ugly anyway.
Thanks.
Well, oh, there you are.
Hey, there he is.
Yeah,
Beautiful face.
Big boy. Face as beautiful as his voice. So, the other day, Cooper and I were talking about the thing we were talking about yesterday with this sort of, I don't know, a cabal of something like a counter elite cabal sort of forming, with Tucker, Alex Jones, Elon, Andrew Tate, and then you got Mike Flynn, and you got some of these other people. Vivek Ramaswamy is sort of playing footsie with them. You got the Joe Rogan crowd. It seems like there's the potential for an actual legitimate counter elite to begin rising out of that. And Cooper and I were talking, and we were talking about this Red Caesar concept that everyone's kind of has this in the back of their mind, looking for it, expecting it. Even if they aren't familiar with the concept of Red Caesar, they're kind of there's a yearning for this return of a powerful, masculine, authoritarian spirit of high moral fiber and intentional order and such things. And I was thinking about the way that our digital, I guess the way that digital reality is ordering us as we're ordering it. and the different types of persons that we're capable of interacting with now. You can have like an actual person, and then you can have digital persons or personas. And sometimes those digital personas are like correspond one-to-one with a person, where a person creates a brand out of themselves and then they use that brand. And then sometimes you get digital personas that are actually a collaboration effort between or among a group of people. So you could have one digital personality, but that digital personality could be constituted either intentionally or unintentionally by a collection of personalities. And I'm wondering if this is the idea I kind of brought up, and Cooper and I talked about it briefly and then teased it on the show yesterday. Is it, if by looking for a Red Caesar, in terms of maybe it's Elon Musk, or maybe it's Tucker Carlson, or maybe it's someone we haven't met yet, or maybe it's Ron DeSantis, ha ha ha. When in looking for an individual personality like that, I wonder if we might be missing a broader phenomenon, which is Red Caesar becoming an emergent phenomenon out of the activities of people.
I think I talked to you about this on a VC at some point, but like I see it more like a stacking phenomena, where what you're seeing is all these different, let's say, populist leaders, from Milei in Argentina to this El Salvador guy, and all these guys. All they have to do is just score one big win, and shock the system in one way, and all those successes kind of stack. So eventually, what someone's going to come by and do is show up and go, "I'm going to take all the things that worked. I'm going to ignore all the things that didn't, and I'm going to add on some of my own things." I think what we forget is like Julius Caesar was closer to Alexander the Great than we are to Julius Caesar. So he was pulling from antiquity. He was pulling from good models that really weren't, in terms of how time worked back then. It wasn't that long ago for them. So he could do like a 1-to-1 model. There's like tons of different models that he could pull from. Where we're at now, there isn't any good modeling, because it's like almost everyone has been revealed to be a schmuck on some level. So it's like no one wants to be FDR, even though FDR was incredibly successful, or Lincoln, because Lincoln was kind of evil, but really also really successful. Like, I think we have to start tossing out these ideas of good and evil to a certain extent, or right and wrong, in terms of some sort of high moral standard, when the situation is that these people are dealing with pretty horrible people. So all you have to really do is do one really good thing, and that will lead to, if there's going to be one guy, and maybe there won't be one guy. I'm rereading, or getting ready to invest more time in Yarvin's patchwork, and I think that patchwork idea is really what we're going to start seeing. More informal, smaller group enclaves, whether it be in smart cities or super cities or areas or countries or microstates or whatever have you. These things are going to start flexing because of this massive power vacuum.
So I was watching a interview today, or I guess a conversation between Jonathan Pajot and John Vervaeke and a guy named Jordan Hall. And they were talking about, they started off with basically the concept of an egregore. And an egregore, for those who don't know, is something kind of like a non-personal entity that arises from the collective minds or the collective consciousness of a group of people. Think of
it's like groupthink. It's like groupthink, but esoteric.
Yeah. Like people don't have ideas have people. And so they were exploring this idea, and the term that John has been using for it is hyper agent. So you have agency, and then you have hyper agency. And the question, one of the things they were teasing out is you have an emergent phenomena that comes from the bottom, but then you also have an emergent phenomena that comes from the top. And so are these things top down, or are they bottom up? They're talking about, they describe like the formation of a tornado, where you get this, paralleling it to mob mentality, where you have this herd thing that arises suddenly, and it becomes an entity that operates according to its own intentionality almost. But then they were differentiating between an entity like that is autopoietic or self-creating, and an entity like that's autocatalytic or like self-sustaining. And really what they're dancing around, and Pajot sitting there is basically making it explicit that what they're describing are spirits. This is what, when the Bible refers to spirits, this is one of the things that it's talking about, is this like an emergent manifestation that is almost, you could say it is like parasitically attached, or kind of is like manifested out of the behavior of humans. When human beings act and do things and we begin organizing ourselves, we generate these spirits that arise. And then the question becomes, are we governing the spirit, or is the spirit governing us? You know, someone has a great idea and everyone begins following that idea, and that idea has its own set of baked-in incentives that perpetuate itself. Then eventually you kind of hit this tipping point where people begin mindlessly following the idea, and the idea possesses them more than they possess it. How does that, this idea of hyper agency,
you know what I'm going to say. Mimesis is an external function that, so all desires are externalized from us, and we seek them. They're not self. We don't generate them. We chase them from external sources, and some people can moderate them to us or mediate them. Other ones are just more obvious. But when I think what people are starting to figure out now, finally, is that there's this whole other section that that can't be covered by psychology. Like, I saw that Viveki was in, or whatever his name is, it was in my feed as well. I was about to click on him, but like, I'm so tired of hearing people approach things from a psychological lens. Like, I'm just done with hearing that side now, because they always seem to hit this thing where they're like, well, and then people just generate this thing because it's evolutionary, yada yada. And you're like, but what would be the evolutionary benefit of creating demons? Like, if demons are all in our head, if spirits and other things are just manifestations of a common consciousness, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, why would we do that? Like, you would think that we would devise systems to stop doing that, because that seems stupid, right? Like, why would you want to make Satan appear in your life?
Right. So the way that you explain these phenomena that are demonic is, well, the way that like the Vervaeke guys, they'll say, I don't know if they'd have an answer to your question, because everything in their mind is like emergent.
Yeah.
But the way you answer the question is like, oh, what's up with all the demonic shit? It's like, yeah, because there's also the top down, there's the emanation, and there's demons, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think this is why they want UFOs to be real.
Yeah.
Because UFOs give them science demons.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, now you got science spirits. Good one. Good.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
They're still demons, right? Like, they're still want to destroy your soul and eat you. So sure. However you get to the dance party, man, it's cool. But now that you're here, you might want to pick up a Bible and start figuring these things out.
So part of this mimetic process, then, this you have desire, and this desire then, it's the desire is what motivates the behavioral process. Desire is what motivates behavior, and that behavior is directed toward, I think, fundamentally toward taking what is and adding to it, trying to generate an excess. And
we all want to be good people. You're getting instantiated. You have a young child. You know this. You know, you're good boy, girl. You know, you're substantiating good and the desire to be good into your child from a very early age. And be that as it may, I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. But So you spend your entire life trying to be good. And in terms of modeling behavior, oftentimes you're looking for people who you believe to be good, so that you can model yourself after them to also be good or successful or whatever. But it's usually good, like morally good. And we've had, up until relatively recently, very good systems. Like, had, model yourself after Christ, and you won't, if you'll never be Christ, but the closer you are to him, the better you will be. Like, even massive atheists, I remember Hitchens and stuff like that, even they couldn't say bad things about Jesus as a character in their mind. So yeah, you do that, right? And that's usually the way to fight it. The issue, I think, is now if you're starting to model demonic forces because people are telling you that demonic activity or that kind of behavior is also good, well, then you get 13-year-old girls chopping their breasts off or whatever. um they're still trying to be good. Like, that's the sick inversion of it.
So this process, you have this additive process that I think is fundamental to human action. This is part of being fruitful and multiplying. It's being fruitful and multiplying isn't simply about having children and generating them. That's an expression of that. That's a fundamental expression of that. But that our entire life is to be dedicated to this additive process, this process of generating value, generating more value from existing value. Now, that process itself is, I believe, what generates these hyper agents. It generates these parasitic thing. We are generally going to refer to them as like ideologies. An ideology would be an example of this sort of hyper agent or spirit, sort of, that becomes a self-reinforcing organizing principle. Ideologies are things that are manufactured. An ideology is a type of artificial intelligence that's generated by human beings to try to mimic the logos. They're like pseudo logi, and so what I see is these like dual forces, where as human beings we have this drive, this additive drive, and I think that what Nick Land describes as capital. I know we've talked about this before. His description of capital being basically doing things competently, and that competently is creating this positive feedback loop of added value. That's an inevitable part of human behavior, and I think it's actually fundamental to our imaging or our being an icon of Christ, is engaging in this creative process. However, engaging in this creative process, when it is not grounded in the logos, is what generates these these hyper agents, these organisms that kind of piggyback on human behavioral patterns, artificial intelligences. So I guess kind of this like a theory or a hypothesis that I'm working on is that the generation of artificial intelligence is a form of technology, and technology is a natural outworking of human behavior. The artificial intelligences themselves are not they're not demons. An artificial intelligence isn't a demon. It's a technology. It's a tool used by human beings. But like every technology, and it's seeming increasingly with each new layer of technology, it's becoming more and more powerful. It's leveraging individual humans' capacity more and more. So the capacity for evil is greater and greater. At the same time, as the technologies evolve and adapt, they serve as mirrors, reflecting back what it is to be human to us. So there's a sense in which technology is something like it's something like a purification process or a filtering process. It's a natural outworking of human behavior, and it can be used for good things and it can be used for bad things. But this seems like it's like a fundamental reality about the human experience. Throw that in your lap. What do you do with that?
Here's one thought I was having. Two divergent thoughts with it, but I was going to probably cover this on tomorrow's show. But liberalism dies every time an academic doesn't make tenure. Seems to be accurate, because I'm watching now the patterns of everyone I see who's talking about certain things. Now with AI, it seems to be that the people who are the most freaked out and warning about this dangerous AI that's going to destroy humanity and stuff like that are all middle management people, or all pretty unexceptional, like the Sam Harrises and like the, maybe people from a certain tribe who make up a disproportionate amount of middle management who in academia, who now are faced with this stunning realization that 90% of their job, or their purpose up to this point, and not to poo-poo it, it's just what it is. It was just data management. Like
Are
they
you
were
referring
just
to the homosexuals?
yeah,
Them too.
I'm referring to many. there are many
Poop
people
dicks?
who are free. Yeah, you have almost three camps, right? People who are freaked out about this thing and saying it's going to destroy the world. It's just really going to destroy their world, but whatever, or put them out of work. You have the people who are completely and totally ambivalent to it, like meh, yeah, what, how, just asking Gronk stupid things. And then you have people who are aggressively going to use it to do cool shit with. Now, whether that cool shit somehow, some of that's going to be horrible and dystopian and stuff, yeah, but we live in 2023, so I mean, what do you want to tell you? Like, yes, it's going to be all horrible and wonderful at the same time. So you are in the singularity. Enjoy it. But I think so. I don't think you can have a decent, intelligent conversation about AI because because the conversation itself is getting so muddied. And I think I agree with you, and I think we've said this pretty early on about things. Because when I heard Cyprian talk about stuff, I was like, no, right? Technology isn't a demon. Demons want us, if anything, and they want us because they're actually they have no they're impotent. They're angry at us because we have agency and they don't. So it may seem like they have agency, but they don't. They're celestial intelligences. Like that's kind of how the Orthodox call it, or I think there's other terms for it, but like these like sort of disembodied intelligences that float around, that were kind of designed to do things to help out greater spirits. And that's what their job was. And some of them just said, nah, right? And went off and did their own thing. But they're just massively impotent. So the only way they can't hurt God. So the only way to hurt God is try to get at us. And the only reason God allows it is because he realizes that it's a learning and purification process for us. So it's kind of like why you let your kid sometimes you let your kid fall, not from a huge height, but from a smaller height, just so your kid understands about falling. This is it. And if you take this on a massive celestial scale, well, it explains a lot of things. Like God made so much more sense to me when I was a father. When I became a father, it was like, oh, right. Well, that makes sense. People are like, well, why didn't he tell us everything? I'm like, do you teach astrophysics to your kid when they're 2? Imagine, think of it that way, right? Think of it like we're stupid. How about if we're just really fucking stupid, and God's just waiting for us to kind of get smarter, so that we're not so fucking stupid about things.
I don't like that. I can't stand the technology is a demon shtick that some people have. Like, okay, was it created by man? The technology? Yeah, then it's not a demon because we can't do that. So,
right.
End of
Well,
argument.
it's also the sorry, I don't know if she's getting a bit too loud in the mic.
No, it's cute.
Yeah, she's into singing now. But her songs, like they're just Tilly songs.
Yeah, Eastwood does the same thing.
They can drive you crazy after a little bit.
Oh yeah.
What I was getting at. Yeah, I mean, there's two things that quite often you hear this from Orthodox Christians, which I always find interesting, is that they seem to be there's like this real desire for the eschaton now. Like they
Mm-hmm.
want to live in, and I'm not talking like the end times. I'm talking about the end times. Like it's we're looking for Elijah, right? Like he's coming any minute now, right? Um, and I think that's a weird outcropping of pride and vainglory. And this other thing that technology or this thing that got built is going to be this horrible demon Satan thing, or the Antichrist comes from it. I'm like, no, no. How about no? Because also, how do you live with that? So you imagine like how are you getting through your day that way? It's the same thing with the JQ or other people who want to give these other people too much power. I'm like, okay, so let's assume you're right, okay, and it's all awful, and we're all going to become digital serfs, and all this stuff is happening, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? First of all, if you're living in America and you're saying that the country's ruled by the Jays and they're out to get you and you're still staying there, I can't help you. Like I feel that that's the same reaction I got when I heard black people say all the cops are racist and killing us in the street. I'm like, well, then why are you there? Like, go out to another. There's Canada, like right the freak there, right? Like, or Mexico. I don't know. Try your luck somewhere else. It seems like stupid to stay somewhere where if you think you're actually under attack. But okay, fine, right? Let's just say you are, and you can't leave. Then just organize your life as if it's not happening. Like that's kind of how I'm deciding to do things now. Like I'm just going to pretend like the Jays don't exist and just keep doing my thing because until they get in my way, and then I'll deal with it. But I'm not going to give them any more power. Like if you honestly think this thing's a demon, why would you freak out about it? Like just
Mm-hmm.
like sidestep it. I don't know.
So, in this conversation between Vervaeke and Pajot and Jordan Hall, one of the observations that they made, I had to stop and write it down while I was listening.
Can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody, I think it was my dad in the comments mentioned that Jordan Hall and John Vervaeke are like cult leaders.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I kind of hope it is because that's my goal.
Yeah.
That's
Learning
what we're
from the
doing
best,
here.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for them. And we're all cult leaders now, guys. Like,
Digital
what do you think we're
culture.
doing here?
I was talking to my sister the other day, and she asked what I was up to.
What do you think a supporting listeners group is?
Right? Yeah. I said something
Drink
about
the Kool-Aid.
The supporting listeners group, or she said like, "What are you up to lately? Starting a cult?" And I said,
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah. Now you say that, we've got the supporting listeners group, and we're thinking we've got some ideas about stuff we want to do with it. And she's just like, "Oh no." Yeah, I don't even know who Jordan Hall is. He's the first time I've ever heard of him. I've enjoyed Vervaeke in the past. He's obviously there's a degree to which it's like him using hyper agents instead of spirits. I kind of understand this impulse. It's like, all right, my brain works in the field of science, and when we go into the field of like religion and mysticism, then I'm just kind of like a blind person groping around. So I'm going to take the concept and translate it into scientific terms so I can try to wrap my mind around it.
I don't think that's why he
think that's
does it.
bullshit because he's read like Saint Maximus.
Oh yeah, he's reading it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so he's not.
Yeah, but
he knows what he's
saying
doing.
is like I understand that impulse, but in this case, he's easily spent enough time around like reading and doing all of this that at this point it's kind of like, come on, dude, just like
it's because the language is discrediting. So
yes,
I think he's gotten in his head that like in his circles, if you start talking about spirits and magic or whatever, people just start to tune you out.
Right.
So he's accepted that limitation. So he's going to come up with another term, and they're going, "Oh yes, non-corporeal disassociated consciousness. Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, is there an acronym for that? Is there like oh yeah, okay, right?
Yeah. NHI, non-human intelligence, is apparently the new term for extraterrestrials
Yeah,
or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. I
Um,
listened to that thing you sent me. The dude, the interview. It was interesting. I was I know who that guy. I forget his name right now, but
Walter Zern or Walter
Zern,
Kern.
yeah, Kern. I
Yeah.
know I've heard him other places, and I was always kind of like, whatever. But I was like, oh, okay. I'm kind of digging this Kern guy until he got to the UFO thing, and he described sitting down with this UFO whistleblower, and him going, well, but he looks very normal, and he's not like got a crazy beard with bees in it and stuff. I'm like, well, yeah, he worked for the military, but okay. But he's like, well, I can't prove he's not telling the truth. And then the next segment right after that is him telling the true story of him being friends with a guy who he didn't know was a serial killer. And I'm like,
Excellent judge of character.
Yeah. I did not even catch that juxtaposition, but now that you say it, yeah. I think the whole time he was describing the guy being like, oh, he's very decent, tall and strapping and very normal, and he was just sitting here talking to me like he was describing a deer he shot or whatever. I was like, so you're saying that he's too clean. You're saying he's too perfect. He's too normal.
well, not only that, but like, okay, so you believe on some level, right, that this guy at least believes that he's been given evidence about UFOs from the U.S. government about it being hidden from the public, yada 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 yada. On some level you believe that because you're not saying this guy's full of shit. Okay, so but you can't really believe it because if you really believed it, you wouldn't be sitting here talking in an interview really calmly about this stuff. You'd be shitting your pants because whether you think it's demons or interdimensional beings that have been contacting Earth and all this other stuff, if you really believe that in that framework, you're not kind of like calmly just going about your life. Like,
Right.
or writing what is it? He's doing a newspaper, but based on like small town events, which is cool, whatever, fine. But I'm like, that's not the behavior of someone who just got told that UFOs are real and you're convinced of it by a very nice looking man from the military, and you're just going about your business. Like, okay, well, fine.
Yeah, it's very
It gives
obvious
me
that
gives me
there's
hope.
that there's a big cognitive dissonance there, big cognitive dissonance block, where he just. Part of it's probably because on some level, like, okay, yeah, if it is aliens and they've contacted us and our government has made deals with them and whatever, then all right, like Cooper's favorite meme. Yeah, it's cool, man. I got a lot going on right now.
I think of that meme like probably at least a few times a week.
Is that meme your Roman Empire?
Oh yeah. It's because there's so many times on X or something on the socials you'll get something and part of my brain wants to engage and the other part of me just thinks of the meme. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, man. Oh, geez, I got other things going on though. Like the whole thing in Gaza, I'm like, well, all right. I'm not even following it really. I'm like half following it. Just like, are they still killing people? Oh, okay, they're still doing that. Cool. Oh, they're still bombing hospitals. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, good PR. Yeah, awesome.
Okay, so back to Vervaeke and Hall and Pajot. One of the points that they were making is, so essentially throughout human history you can track and you can identify these different, using their terminology, these hyper agents, and what we're experiencing right now is essentially the degradation. What I said, I kind of summarized what they were saying. It's our ontology is being destabilized by the manifest degradation of existing hyperagents and the nascent emergence of new hyperagents. So essentially, the old spirits
Demons.
are dying and the new spirits are rising.
Sure.
And
Vengeful Sun.
yes. I forgot. I was going to highlight this thing that I tagged you in Twitter. Quick aside. So,
The girl?
just to illustrate the point that you've been making.
Side quest.
Yeah, side quest.
Yeah.
And before we go on to the side quest, as Slowboy Whiteboard points out, there's 26 watching and 12 likes. So come on, folks, get your likes
Quit
up.
fucking around.
Strengthen up your spirit, pussy.
Okay, so a minute 16 seconds.
She's very pretty, by the way. Like she's very pretty. I haven't like mentally clocked a pretty girl in a while. I don't know why. Maybe it's my age. Maybe it's having a daughter. Who knows? Whatever. But I looked at her like, if I was 20 something, I'd be like obsessed with this girl.
She's
I am
crazy.
sick.
She's got red hair. I've never watched
Oh,
this,
yeah.
but she has red hair. She looks insane.
That's
I'm
my
sick.
thing.
Let's
then.
get your take before and after. Let's see what you think, Cooper.
Okay.
I am sick.
So what am I?
I'm
Well, hold
sick
on.
because-
Before and after. She's sick. Yeah, I know. I can tell. I'm looking at your eyes. What is this about? What is the context?
You'll see. It's very
Okay.
obvious.
Okay.
Because I will go out in public and see today's young men, and I'm just like, something's not clicking for me. Something's just not doing it for me. I've been single for 4 years. But then I'll go to the thrift store, and you know those like little buckets that have like the old photos in them? Yeah, I'll look through those. And I'm like, whose grandpa is this? Because he was so fine, okay? Like my grandpa who was in World War II. Not him. Okay. Give me a second. My grandpa who was in World War II, a fighter pilot, he was alive until a few years ago, and he was wonderful. And when he passed away, I was the one who was like, give me all these family photos, like, give me everything, like, give me the photos. So I have photos of him and his squadron, I think you call it. They were the real, like, they were so fun. Not my grandpa, but the men that he was flying and working with. They were so handsome. And I don't know what it is, like, I really don't. And then I'll see those TikToks of the men, like the actors from the 60s, the 50s and the 60s, and they were so handsome. I don't know, maybe it's just the way they dressed. But, like, I don't like old men. I love young men. I just love young men back then, you know.
Okay, Cooper. What do you think now?
Yeah, it sucks. Sorry.
Well, what's your evaluation on her based on your initial impression
She seems annoying.
versus your initial impression?
Like she talks a lot, and she probably says like more than me.
Well, we
You
can't
know?
all be perfect. Yeah, but this is so you're asking the question like this. So I made two relative predictions
Mhm.
recently. One about the vengeful son, which is more of a meta thing. But the other thing that I brought this with Charles Haywood, and you had a bit.
What was
of
the point of
pushback
that
on it.
side quest?
I'm
We're
getting
getting
to
into
it. That the
okay.
prediction is this: that things are going to get neotrad real fucking fast. Like you're going to wake up one day, and I'm going to say I don't like using timelines, but like just say in the next 6 months to a year, because it's already happening very quickly. Where all those blue-haired, ultra feminists, like woke intersectional people, are going to be wearing bobby socks or frocks, talking about apple pie, going to church, getting all Americana, man, getting very very neo-trad, wearing suits, all the whole thing. Jordan Peterson, David Rubin, et al. Because they're going to swing this. They've lost the narrative so much, and woke is basically done. They're going to swing this so hard the other way that it's going to be stunning, and it's already happening. There's another one. I'll see if I can find it, but I'll have it on the show tomorrow, anyways. Where it's really an ad about. Sorry, stop that. It's really an ad about guys using using dating apps too much, but the imagery used is very interesting. Yeah, here it is. I don't know if I can be able to show this. Oops.
Should be able to.
Hang on, where are you? Can I share screen? Yes. Okay. Oh, no, I can't. I cannot share a screen.
It won't let
I
you.
can't share a screen. Here, I'll send it to you, Matt.
Okay.
It'll be on X. Anyways, so to set that up, you'll see it immediately. You'll see it immediately what I'm talking about. There's also the other one we talked about on last Friday's show about the it's a Chrysler ad for Christmas, all white people, all white family. Mom is dementia up the fuck up. She gets better because she sees a Chrysler. I don't know. But all white people, all during Christmas. Like 6 months ago, this wouldn't have happened. Like there'd be some Asian person there, right? Like the daughter would be Asian, don't ask questions, and there'd be some black people in the background because whatever. And mom would be gay. But now it's just like that, like as if someone got a message. Yeah. So look, okay, even before you play it, what does that look like?
Americana.
What?
That looks like
Play
Elvis
it.
Presley.
Watch the kids close.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you what, I like the aesthetic.
Uh-huh.
Kind of 90210, mid 90s, kind of 50s feel. The peach pit thing going on, the gum thing. Look, it's a gumball machine in the background.
I'm liking it.
Excuse me. But you are absolutely beautiful, and I would love to take you on a date sometime.
Right, so there's a dystopia, right? So
That guy's
it's not
got
so much
horrible game.
right. He's kind of a Chad looking motherfucker too. Like, why is he on dating apps? But look at all that imagery, and even what it's telling you is like young men shouldn't be on dating apps, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see a massive pushback. I think OnlyFans and all that stuff is out the door. Like, as they maximize it, right? There'll be a period of transition, but it will be people will be openly calling women those girls whores, and like across the board.
What was
Their
that?
peers will be calling it.
What was that?
I don't know. I don't know what the commercial was for, but what struck me was the imagery of it. Like it's 1950s, and I said early on, it's like I'm like I don't know if they're. I think the liberals want to go back to 95, but I think this neo-trad thing will go back to the 50s, and because it's far enough away, and the great generation, the silent generation, don't have as much mud on them, so they won't want to go to the 60s and 90s. They'll want to go back to the 50s. Right, where it's even more pure. So it's going to be Daddy Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver and Bobby Socks and Chuck Berry and all that. You're going to start seeing it freaking everywhere.
You're also getting there's it has an 80s vibe to it too. It has
little 80s, little 90s, yeah, for sure.
You've got the era of there was kind of like the coming of age era for Gen X. Gen X was really like Back to the Future, kind of like that what do you call it, like that era, that particular Back to the Future era when the movies came out is very
on the spectrum
coming of age for them.
On the spectrum of Gen X, you have the older ones and the younger ones. I'm technically younger Gen X, but the older ones are actually going to be more influenced. Their parents were more likely to be and probably have more cultural influences from the silent generation. And you did see a pocket of this in the 90s. You guys might have been too young for this, but do you remember when the swing craze came back?
I don't know about like what time in the 90s you think?
Like 93?
I was totally alive. I'm not too young.
Like 97 or 98.
So there was like this. They went back to slam poetry came back out from the Beats. It was very Bukowski had a big resurgence. Kerouac, all those guys, and you got sort of like this push from the silent generation, like that whole culture, the beatniks and that kind of stuff became very cool for a period of time, and I think it had a big cultural impact for the older boomers. Like Joe Rogan brings up who's that comedian? I can't remember his name right now. It doesn't matter. But from that time period, right? So there's that 40s and 50s, 1945, 1955 influence that is also influencing Gen Xers, and it's in their cultural DNA. So it wouldn't be crazy for them to go back to that point.
Mm-hmm. and this is all overlapping or coinciding with the phenomenon that we've talked about before, both in the King Pilled voice chats and on the show about the die off of the boomers, and with them the there's this mentality I've started calling naive boomer idealism, and it it even this video that Cooper sent me yesterday of this guy who's made his video about like the schizo autist spectrum
Yesterday, that was this morning.
or this morning rather, yeah. It in it, like one of the things, one of his little bits in it is he's describing this basically kind of like this theory, and he says I went and got some sources, and the sources are he's like just so you know, I went and found I had the conclusion in mind, and I went and I found the sources that support my conclusion. And then with another part of it, he said he's doing this all like performatively, kind of as a bit. And the other part, he said that he presented kind of this theory, and then I don't remember exactly what it was. Like he presented, like he said that there's evidence that this isn't true, or there's no evidence that it's true, or something like that. But he's like, but I like the story, so I'm just going to believe it's true. That is a manifestation of this kind of Gen X / Zoomer spirit that we've been trying to feel out, giving the finger to this naive boomer idealism, where it's like, well, no, you have to have your peer review, and you have to have all your sources, and you have to make sure everything is aligned, and you got to make sure everything's been studied out and parsed, and it's like, no, it makes sense to me. It feels true. I'm just going to believe it and act like it is.
I have
As a
never
Gen
in
X-
my life, I have never started as like blank slate. Let me look at the evidence and come to a conclusion. That's stupid. No, I'm ideologically possessed, and
I like
I'm
my
gonna
I like
find-
my narratives more than your narratives.
That's right.
I'm biased.
I
that
like
way,
my
so.
story better than yours. So I'm gonna look for every piece of evidence to support my story and dismiss yours because yours is dumb and gay.
Well, because there's two things going on at the same time. Like most of the things that people get bent out of shape in are bullshit, stupid things, anyways, that don't matter. Like
Yeah.
half the things that people bring up and try to correct you for is like, why do you, who cares? Like, and as a Gen Xer in the room, I can say that the thing that drives me up the freaking wall about millennials, and this is a massive millennial trait, is that you're in a conversation with millennial, and they've been trained very well to derail conversations by simply going, wait, and they'll fact check you and go, you got a date wrong. You said it was the 12th. It was actually the 14th. Yeah, right. And then there's almost no. It's a power play, but it just means like you're like, okay, so the conversation's over then. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we just sit here and look at each other. I don't. What are we doing? Like, like, or we could have just bounced ideas off each other and had some fun. But no, you want to like pinpoint something that I said wrong or inaccurately about whatever, or they go, well, you're not a doctor, you're not a scientist, you know. It's like, okay, well, yeah, you're right. I'm I'm only referencing someone who is, but fine, okay. You don't want to have this conversation. Cool. You had your power move. Congratulations. We'll just sit here in silence. And I think, I don't know, Cooper, you can as a Zoomer here. I think that's one thing both our generation share is like it's so fucking annoying that I agree with the bit where it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna okay. You want proof here? I'm gonna AI proof it. I'm gonna ignore everything else that says I'm wrong. I'm going with dinosaurs are fake and gay. And I don't really care, like, because you know what? It doesn't fucking matter. But it does. But it doesn't. You know. I can't wait if they run the UFO story next year. I can't wait because I just want to see the millennial libtards try to fit this into their phronema. Like I'm frothing at the bit. I'm like, please show me how you're going to try to figure this one out, and try to spin this one in your head, because there's only two ways. But okay, fine. Yeah, I want to see you do it, because it's going to be lovely. I mean, I want to hear you tell me, right, what the things I've been telling you this entire time. It's like when you're an early adopter of anything, like with the Ukraine-Russia war, and I came out pretty strong against saying that Ukraine should just capitulate and go for peace deal early on. And I've had many arguments both online and in person about that. And now that it's being proven, like all the things I said was going to happen and are happening, because I'm not freaking stupid, and I've been paying attention to the situation for like 20, 30 years now. So now that everything's happening, it's wonderful watching people just either abandon it or, try to spin it somehow. Like, well, Russia's lost 90% of its army. You're like, okay, sure. Run with that. Fine.
So to tie this conversation into the Red Caesar idea, one of the thoughts that I was pondering as I was getting ready to do the show here today is, so taking this theory these guys are talking about of these hyper agents, and thinking of the hyper agents essentially as like ideologies, because I don't know that I would say an ideology is a demon. So when they're talking about hyper agents, I think something like an ideology would fit this sort of emergent intelligence thing that they're describing. I don't think there's one-to-one exactly. I think an ideology is an example of it, and it's useful to use for the purposes of musing on these ideas. So if we're in this, like what they said, our ontology is being destabilized by the manifest degradation of existing hyperagents and the nascent emergence of new hyperagents. Basically, the role of technology in our lives is one of the roles of technology in our lives is that it is revealing these hyperagents to us. By and large, most people go on not ever being aware of it. But then it's like all of a sudden you realize that there's this thing there and it's looking at you. And you suddenly realize you're in a relationship with something that you didn't realize was there. This is happening on like a social scale. People are becoming aware of this tendency of human organizations to take on a mind of their own and then operate. You see this from the left side, looking at right-wingers and seeing them as being possessed by things like racism or whiteness or these spiritual categories that they've created.
I just want to stop you there. I think all we have to really do is try to get the right people elected to the right offices.
Right. Oh,
now we're talking.
So easy. Thanks, folks. Appreciate you showing up.
Have a good night. Already. Thanks for coming by.
I'm a PhD.
Which actually, as another quick side quest, a thought that popped into my head as I was saying that was, it's interesting to consider in the context of this sort of a revival of red-blooded Americanism in that movie Civil War that the preview dropped yesterday. Who are the so-called Confederates? The Confederates
I'm assuming the guys,
journalists.
Or whoever the guy. So there's two shots. There's the army guy, white army guy with the red glasses, who we know must be evil. He's like, "What kind of American are you?" Right? And there's the other shot of a guy with like a sniper or someone with a rifle, and he's got paint. He's got fingers. He's got his finger painted. I'm like, well, so he's got to be the good guy.
Yeah, right. Yep, right.
The journalists are going to save us all somehow. I'm not sure if the president in that clip is good or evil. Could go either way, because we're not given enough. So I'm not sure if he's the guy who's attacking the liberals or whatever. It's a fever dream, and it's delightful to see, because again, this is your mind on liberalism. It just drives you the freak insane.
What the thing that stood out to me is, in the context of what we're talking about here, is that in this particular fantasy that they're setting up, the the wrong kind of Americans have control of the White House, and they're the ones who would be, if you parallel from the original Civil War to the new Civil War, the Republicans are the ones who control the White House. The Republicans are the Northerners. The Republicans are the party of Lincoln. And the Democrats...
The War of Northern Aggression. Stop calling it the Civil War.
Then you can't talk about the movie and it together. So we have to use the terminology that fits it together the best.
The original Boogaloo.
Yeah.
It was, and then
so in the way the movie is being framed, you have the the libs essentially, who now represent the secessionist uprising,
Who are the real
attacking the
racists?
empire.
The real racists. Just I want to point that out.
Right. So what they're doing is the libs themselves are beginning to identify with Southerners. They're in reenacting the Civil War, they're identifying themselves as the Southerners.
Have you seen
And this, I think
demographic
this
maps?
connects very tightly with your theory that you're talking about having this rise in neo-traditionalism and beginning to valorize Americana again.
I think it's interesting because like I think obviously some people have hearkened on to this on purpose, but this goes into the spirit idea. Like, what is a spirit? What's going on here? And if you want to get away from woo-woo language into just sort of like, yeah, and it's an egregore, it's a self-generating idea that is modeled by people. Where does it come from? Well, that's a good question, right? I don't think it necessarily has to be some tribesman sitting in a a room figuring this out. Like, now, next, we're gonna make them go back to 1955. Schmecky. Like, we're gonna get the jukebox back out. But I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it was like that. But somehow these desires show up, and people respond to the desires very quickly, and they have mechanisms that are very desire box. Like, they're very, very good and very fast at responding to desires. Like this movie, Civil War, must have. Like most movies have a 2-year turnaround. So from writing, producing, and shooting and putting it out. So this thing was in production probably at least 2 years ago, or a year and whatever ago.
I heard that it was recorded during COVID.
Right. Okay. So there you go. Right. So this is already in the liberal mind somewhere before all this, post-Trump, or But now, flash forward, they've already missed the boat because most people in their own Democratic Party, the real racists, I should say, want to vote Trump. Whoops. Like all of a sudden the dictator is looking pretty good right now. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this ends up. I think it's a lot of teeth gnashing for nothing. I think people are really quick to push the predictive programming button. But I honestly don't think America's going to civil war. Basically, I think the writers of that movie watched way too much Tim Pool and got way too influenced. It's like you gotta step back from it.
Yeah, we're not fighting a war. There's not going to be a civil war. That's so dumb.
Okay, so
I wish.
But to your point, right? There is all these callbacks. There's all these callbacks to something more solid, because we've been just, I think, living in chaos for so long that any order will do, and people are going to start reaching. So I mean, I've said that the incoming spirit of this age will be the vengeful son, which will basically the product of having the tyrannical father of the 2 world wars, leading into the devouring mother of the 1960s until now. And then you're going to have this vengeful son spirit, which is like the offspring of those 2 spirits. And you get things like game stonks, Elon Musk telling basically the WEF and all the rest of them to go fuck themselves, waging war, the ADL and all that kind of stuff. Like, you're going to start seeing acts of aggression and violence that don't have to be kinetic. And I think you're going to start seeing reactions and a lot of panic about violence and aggression, because it's not going to come from a physical thing. Like, this is the poverty of imagination, that the real violence won't come from a gun. It'll come from literally burning down institutions to the ground. It'll come when all of a sudden the ADL just gets wiped off the map, or Media Matters just ceases to exist. Like, it's hard to kind of to express to people how big of a deal that is, but it's a big freaking deal, and you're going to see more and more and more of it, where banking institutions are going to be completely restructured, and all these other things are going to start happening because of this. Like I said at the start of the show, this new power group that's forming, who might give us some sort of Red Caesar, or at least a visual version of them. I think they're manifesting that spirit the most, because of all that cadre, you have a lot of very angry people who've been held back, held down, fleeced, fucked, all the rest of it. Even if they're doing extremely well for themselves, it's still that, like, Tucker has that spirit of, nah, we're gonna destroy this. We're gonna wipe it out. We're gonna take it over. We're gonna do our thing. And I think you're gonna see a lot of that now because boomers are gone.
What if like Canada invaded us? Nobody would expect that.
Least of all the Canadians.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, what are we doing, eh? Oh, I just I was feeling depressed. I was about to have my maid's appointment, but I guess we're doing this now. Like,
did you see the video of the kid with the talking about Mississauga, the kid with the Ontario accent? Did you see that video going around? Okay, we got it.
I did some growing up in Mississauga.
Here. All right, then I'm very
Side
curious to
quest.
get your take on this. Where do I
Toronto?
find...
Down in Toronto?
I always have... I can never find where the frickin' bookmarks are on... There we are. On desktop. Okay, this one here. Share. Okay.
What's the best and worst thing about Mississauga?
The best thing about Mississauga, all the bitches with fat asses, Like, when I hit that, it jiggles, fam. Like, like, it's proper, super proper.
What's the worst thing?
All the weasies with your feet beep, fam. All panda by shit, They flex their mom's rent money or rack on Insta thinking they got motion, Like, they're all weasies, They carry bear maces and shit. They're all my youths,
What's the best and...
I think he strikes me as like First Nations or Métis.
I have no idea what he said.
Métis. Oh,
I have no idea what he said. In terms of accent stuff, he's probably at Square One Shopping Center, by the way. In terms of accents, yeah, there's the white person accent in Ontario, and Ontario gets like, you ever hear Bob and Doug? Like, that's the Ontario accent. Like, okay, like that's really like if you go up north in Ontario and like in Manitoba and stuff, that's how they talk, eh? Like, they're shove off, you hoser. That's very much that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but so there's always kind of that almost. What is it? Where is it in the mid? Is it Michigan for you guys, or where's Fargo?
Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin. They all kind of have a little bit of that. Yeah, sure, you betcha. Eh?
Yeah, and you can hear it with even.
I don't have that. No. I don't have it. My wife has it. I do not.
Do you want a cookie?
Yeah. Well, I got breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay, so end of that side quest. Back to the point at hand here. So, what these guys had me contemplating is using this category of hyperagent and thinking of it as these kind of self-organizing sort of emergent patterns that form out of human societies, and they overlap heavily with like demon worship, but they're not necessarily demon worship. I'm thinking of these as being kind of like the giant clans that were in the Promised Land. The Israelites had to go wipe out these giant clans. These giant clans are kind of, I think, sort of like an ancient parallel to these modern hyper agents. These various ideas that catch fire. They kind of spread like a virus. Some of these viral ideas have like natural virality to them. Like the video we watched a little bit ago about this girl who is yearning for past days of what young men looked like when her grandpa was young. That sort of idea is that went viral because it resonated with people. It becomes when something like that goes viral, it manifests something about the human subconscious. It manifests something about the way humans are thinking and feeling. And then if you track that, you can start projecting, like Jason, you're doing. You're starting to put these pieces together and say, okay, we're getting an idea of what's coming down the line based on what people are revealing about what they're thinking and feeling and prioritizing. So,
yeah, and like that's my intention. Sorry, Cooper, go.
I was just gonna say we need to, inspired by Well Emmanuel's comment here. We need to do a stream where we do cookie ASMR, where we just
don't
like
know what it
chew cookies in the mic
Oh,
for people to listen to. That would be awesome.
not a single word is said. It's just crunching on cookies.
Yeah,
you know what?
just chewing.
that, and then we could do like a cornflakes episode too, where you get that milk, you know, that soggy milk kind of.
Yeah. Make sure to monetize. Lots of traffic.
We're gonna take over the whole entire. There's only one market for it, and it's us.
Yeah,
Like, that's
chew on a
it.
celery stick.
Take a bite
We're the
out
whole
of a head of
mall.
lettuce.
We're the whole mall. We own this bitch.
Chewing my toenails.
So this Red Caesar idea, I think, is another one of these hyper agents. I think this Red Caesar idea is it's one of these things that is going to continue to grow, and it's going to continue to take shape and form, but it's going to happen. It's not something that's going to happen necessarily from the top down or from the bottom up. It requires both. So you have the circulation of elites. You have a counter elite, and that counter elite serves the role of inserting particular ideas into the conversation. This is what Vivek Ramaswamy is doing. His job isn't to actually run for president. His job is to move the conversation, to shift the Overton window. And so by you have the elites who seed the ideas, and then you have the commoners or the plebs or the non-elites who begin to embody the ideas. And right now we're at a stage where everybody wants Red Caesar, but nobody wants to be Red Caesar. Nobody wants to actually embody Red Caesar on the ground with what that actually means.
Well, first of all, I think it's going to be all Caesars are purple by default.
Sure.
Typically, if you get red or blue,
Right.
basically that's a dictator. Because the purple, you kind of want the most amount of people on board with you. You're always going to have your detractors, but you want the majority of people on all to get parts of the hierarchy to be with you. Otherwise, it's Julius Caesar security system all over again. So I think
just get like a better security system. Don't like make Mark Antony be in charge, because obviously he fucked that.
yeah, just like just chopsticks. That's it. That's no more. Only chopsticks allowed in the Capitol. But
yeah,
to get to your point though, so here's the thought. Caesar is just a king, right? Like has basically
oh
having,
shit, I gotta go. Later, fellas.
Ciao, buddy.
See it.
Taking the position of supreme authority at the top of the hierarchy. How this is typically done in the past is you have these lords, the elites, who agree to give up part of their sovereignty to this king, right? So it's like they don't give it all up. They still have their lands and all their holdings and all the rest of it, but they realize that look, we keep doing this individually, we're always going to have these problems. We're going to tear each other up. But if we give a little bit of our sovereignty, a portion of our sovereignty up to this one guy, then he's going to be almost the amalgamation of all of our parts of our sovereignty, and he's going to manifest that, and he's going to then rule the hierarchy. So it's not just so we can manifest the desire for Caesar, and certainly the more desirable things are, the more likely someone will arise somewhere in the West, probably America. But the issue with it is you're going to need to get a certain amount of elites or a new center of elites who all voluntarily give up part of their sovereignty to this Caesar. That's the only way it works. And FDR did this, right? Classically, went around and went to all the powerful elites of the day and just simply said, look, you're going to get on board. Like, either talked him into it or bought him into it or whatever that, but he got their support. And by getting all their support and getting them to go along with this, you don't just substantiate the policies, you substantiate the narrative going forward. So you can start doing things like locking up, Japanese people in internment camps, and everyone just looks the other way, right? Like, what happened? It's amazing that you could have that history and have a representative of FDR in Orphan Annie and Annie, right? He's in the play. His character playing him is in the play, and he's like doing a song and dance routine, in a musical. So like, that's what I'm talking about. That's power, right? Power is, they don't even start talking about your shit until long after you're dead. Like, and we're basically into a new epoch. Like, no one really cast crap on FDR until probably the last 10, 15 years, not that I was aware of. Same thing with Lincoln. So yeah, that's what I think. That's why it's encouraging to see a new group of elites start to emerge and maybe take control, more and more control, because if they're the people who can go, all right, I'll give you part of my sovereignty, I'll give you a part of this, and you now can run with it. Tucker can give you a bit of his media, Elon give you a bit of his technology, whoever else is in there. That's how that works. And then that person will have all those parts working with him, plus whatever he brings to the table. And
I think the way that you get that is there's an aspect of that has to be manifested from the ground up. There's the top down part of it where the actual Caesar himself shows up and Caesar's appropriately. And then you have it's kind of like the CEO with his board of directors. The board of directors are kind of like the lords or the nobles, the ones who cede some of their sovereignty to him, and they invest, they ground that sovereignty in him. But that also is something that is, I think it has to happen on a micro scale as well. And it's, here's the fractal emote time. You get it's a fractal hierarchy. So
for sure,
the CEO and his board of directors, each of those board of directors serves as a CEO with his own board of directors. And each of the guys on those board of directors serves as a CEO with his own board of directors, all the way down. And in order to begin manifesting that spirit, it has to start by you beginning to act as a CEO of your own life and amass your own board of directors. You begin manifesting the Caesarian spirit that ultimately culminates in the actual Caesar himself.
Look, all desires are external. This is Gerard 101. And we're always going to externalize our desires, even when you're aware of mimetic. Even when you're aware of mimesis, it still plays on your life. The only thing you can do is be aware of it and go, okay, so I'm mentoring, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I should calm that down or become more in control of it. To model your life after successful people, if that's what you want to be as successful, is not stupid. That's exactly what you have to do. Like, because you don't know how to do it. No one, and school's never going to teach you things like that. Like, it's not just knowledge, like learned information. It's a way of being. It's a state of being. So you have to be able to model successfully a sort of the externalized vision of that, and then it's like you fake it till you make it. Like you basically keep modeling that system or those people until you become that person, or you completely wash out and go do something else. But yes, you should model yourself after Elon Musk or Tucker Carlson or whoever. Like, you should be looking at those things and figuring out what they're doing and why they're doing it. And so you have basically two choices. You can either do pretty much what they're doing, or you can try to screw with it and go, okay, he's doing this, everyone's doing this, I'm going to do something different. Like, I'm going to change the price point. I'm going to, I don't know, whatever, right? Everyone has blue background. I'm going to go with red and see how that goes. Because sometimes you can go anti-mimetic and break cycles and break frames where we realize like what everyone thinks they want is just because this other dude did it. And the reason why, like, why everyone has blue background, well, Tucker has a blue background. That's it. There's no other reason. So yeah, you got to organize yourself that way. So the king sets the culture. Everyone else downstream models the king, but the king's strength and his prosperity and his sort of his legacy are the people and the land. That's the prosperity of what he builds is really what carries forward his legacy. And why else would you want to do that job anyways?
Mhm.
So yes, you need the desire of the people. The people have to desire it, and not just from one segment of the population, but the general population has to desire it. And then the elite structure is going to go, okay, if they want that, we got to find a guy who can do that, or this guy showed up, he wants to do it. Okay, is this someone I can trust to give my some of my sovereignty to?
Hmm.
Julius Caesar, for example, wouldn't have been able to cross the Rubicon and all that stuff if the Senate hadn't screwed with the military of the day, right? Which is where he was drawing his strength from. And the majority of people in Rome were like, yeah, fuck the Senate, right? You got, and they love Julius, so they're like, yeah, cool, right? You do that, you know. You need that support, not because you're worried about the common guy doing something. That's not the concern. The thing is that that's your legacy. Like your legacy is not going to be carried out by the elites. You know, they're
Mhm.
more likely just going to replace you or claim it for themselves. So the only thing that carries out your legacy throughout time is the people.
I think there's a currently a very passive spirit on the right. There's the right and kind of in Christian communities broadly speaking, there's a very passive spirit with respect to this sort of thing, where some people either think it's not possible or they think it's inevitable, and I think the rise of some type of a Caesar is inevitable. The question of what type of Caesar, I think, is something that's yet to be determined. And I think that there should be. I was playing around with this idea of so that you have the hyper agents are kind of like the giant clans in the Promised Land, and humans. So the children of Israel were brought into the land of Canaan, the Promised Land, and they went through and they wiped out all of the giant clans. Now, wiping them out did not necessarily mean killing all of them. It meant changing the rituals that they participated in, because the people were identified with the rituals that they participated in. That's how you defined a tribe. The tribe is the people who are united around the performance of particular rituals. It's a participational definition. It's a participational entity.
Yeah, the
And
ritual and reality are one.
right. And in a similar way, then I think that Christians have a responsibility to be taking control of these so-called hyper agents, becoming agents that like colonizing the hyper agents and grounding them in the logos. And in so doing, you're overturning the giant clans. So, what was the note that I wrote here? I wrote the proper role of Christians in forming the telos of Caesar. And related to that was Paul seeking to convert Nero. You had Paul, his goal was to get to Rome because he wanted to convert the emperor. There's definitely a Christian precedent for this. But the last idea that I was playing with here is shout out to Adam Patrick, good friend of the show. He has his podcast, Age of Information. And we definitely are in the age of information. In fact, we're drowning.
Does he
in
still do
information.
shows? I never
Yeah.
sure.
He actually does quite a few.
Just here and there, I think.
Yeah.
You kind of have to catch them whenever you can. I love.
I think
Adam.
he took a break for a little while, but
Yeah.
he's been back.
I'm just breaking his balls.
Yeah. So we're in this age of information, but we are not suffering from a lack of information. We have an overabundance of information to the point where it's kind of paralyzing. We're sort of on a social level, we're suffering from analysis paralysis. Everyone's trying to figure out what's coming next, how to react to it, how to respond, what to do. And with something like this idea of a Caesar, a red Caesar, or purple Caesar, or whatever Caesar, there's sort of this like sense of inevitability, like, well, yeah, whatever, there's nothing I can do about it. It's just going to happen, whatever. And yeah, it is going to happen, but how it happens is that story is yet to be written. I think that what could characterize, I'm going to kind of do a fun little wordplay thing here. So we're in the age of information. We're going through a period of transformation. And I believe the future is for the people who begin to engage in out formation. So you've taken in enough. You've taken in enough information. It's time for you to form outward. It's time to start building communities, constructing and targeting and engineering communities for the purpose of essentially colonizing these political instincts, giving them a ground and a base that they can that they're drawn into to try to I guess like sanctify these political motivations before they take root. Is anything like this? Is this resonating? Or does this make any sense?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm also battling with a 3.5-year-old. So
you have your own hyper agent on your.
Yes, I have my own hyper agent who is who's transdimensional and very cute. Yes, you have to substantiate behavior. Like it's like getting back to the AI thing. There's always this concern about, what if they put all the bad things in the AI and the AI will spit out all bad things? It's like, what if we start putting in good things like Christ?
Mm-hmm.
What if Christians can get inside those systems? Like, this is a very sort of David Gronowski kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why don't Christians build AIs and with a Christ basis in its biasing,
colonizing the technology.
Right. See what that does.
Christians are the OG colonizers.
Well, yeah, because they have the perfect system, which is like you implant the idea in the king, and you change the entire empire.
Right.
You don't have to get every single individual. You get the one person, and suddenly the entire empire changes. So, yeah, why and of course that kind of produces, I think, nominal Christians, that sort of porridgey mud. But again, it's like there's always things you can find to complain about in terms of it's not going to be perfect or not going to be this or not going to be that. But it's like, yes, but will it be better than what you have today? And if the answer is yes, then you pursue that and keep pursuing that and try to make it marginally better, or at least not horribly despotic. Like, I'm getting tired of people telling me that we're in Weimar 2.0. It's like, no, we're not, because people in Weimar didn't know they were in Weimar. So they didn't have the benefit of people like us who can look at it and go, this feels like Weimar 2.0. Okay, well, then what we need to do we have to do some things.
Right? Yeah. Knowing that it's Weimar 2.0 prevents it from actually being Weimar 2.0.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, because yes, you can always find parallels, but if there's, excuse me, the reason I can do the show today is I'm sick at home with a kid. I'm dying, but yeah, the reason why, even if there is a World War III, it won't be World War III, is because it will never be fought like that again. And I think we said this in VC over the King Pill Discord, which you all should be joining, by the way, if you haven't already. And one of what did we say? It was something like, I just lost that thread. Help me out.
You're talking about World War III, that it's not going to be fought the same way as.
Oh yeah, sorry. This is a Thomas 7.7 thing. That the 20th century needs to be seen as an anomaly. That it did things that it was completely disruptive to the rest of how history works. And either you can say, well, that's a new trajectory, which maybe it could be, or we're just coming back to the normal thing, which means that the 20th century was just a weird combination of technology and geopolitical yada 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 and all these different things you can examine it from. But it's a weird century, and you shouldn't base your future you shouldn't base your thinking on the 20th century. Essentially, you should, like, even like maybe like the mid to late 19th century is getting kind of weird. Like, go back further to all the rest of history and then you can start seeing like, oh yeah, well, things kind of operate in normal patterns. Even like when people are, doing crazy wars or things that we would today find disruptive or outside of our minds. It's like there's still a pattern and sort of an intelligence to it. Like we've entered this weird part of the 20th century where nothing made sense, and people did a lot of things that don't make sense, but yet they did them anyways. It's like it was an anti-civilizational period of time, and we're kind of coming out of that now.
Mm. I think one of the things that really characterized the 20th century is it's the first century that really began to experience an exponential growth in technological development. The gap between 1900 and 2000 was, in terms of technological innovation, was vastly more than the gap between the beginning and end of any prior centuries. It was more than, I don't know, probably like 8 prior centuries combined. And we've been continuing that process into the 21st century. And I think it's still going to continue. And I guess one of the big things that I'm wanting to, motivate people toward is not seeing technology as fundamentally evil, and in fact seeing their responsibility in not shying away from technology, but actually stepping into this new technological landscape and treating it as a new frontier to explore and colonize and settle. Because I think that it's going to, I think what we're looking at, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I think what we're looking at is the birth of the new empire. And the new empire is not going to be an empire characterized by a national identity. It's going to be an empire characterized by digital identity. And being able to functionally move and operate within this digital world and to innovate, especially on the level of community, to innovate in ways that enhance community, that bring people together, that integrate people. I think this is a fundamental responsibility for Christians. Your job is not to just passively make your way through your life and, maybe say nice things to people or give people money or, just go to church and do your, like, mankind was created to exercise dominion over the earth. And exercising dominion over the earth, one of the first characteristic tasks of that was naming the animals, which is to apply order and structure and to give an identity and to give meaning to the lives around mankind. This is the Christian ethos. This is what we should be doing. And if you're sitting there kind of just waiting to see which direction the winds are going to blow, the reality of this exponentiating technological curve and the political climate that we're in means by the time the winds start blowing and you sense that they're blowing, it's already too late. The opportunity has passed you by and you're going to be operating at a significant deficit. I'm actually very optimistic and hopeful about the future. I think there's a lot to be optimistic and hopeful about. But a large amount of that depends on Christians rediscovering, to channel David Gornowski, rediscovering the spirit of technological innovation and scientific exploration and entrepreneurship. As Mr. Gornowski is fond of saying, he says that the scriptures start in a garden, but they end in a city. And I think people don't appreciate how profound that is. If you look what's the word I'm looking for? Symbolically. Yeah, symbolically. I don't know why my brain just short-circuited on that.
It does happen to me all the time.
Symbolically, if you look at what a city represented in the Old Testament, especially in the first third or so of the book of Genesis, cities were a manifestation of the spirit of Cain. Cain was the first king, founded the first city. So to say, and so the city stood for degeneracy, corruption, evil, and it's associated with technological innovation and development. So to to someone at that time with that imagery of a city, to say God's city would have been akin to the way today if someone was to say God's Sodom. Because that's basically what Sodom means to the modern mind is what city meant to the ancient mind. And yet, it's a reality that the end of the story in the scriptures is a city, God's city. So the sort of Christian apocalyptic tendency toward Luddism, I think, is going to become is a big problem, and it's going to become a much bigger problem. Christians can't be afraid of technology. They need to be striding into it, and actually should be the ones who are forefront in developing and innovating with it.
The logos is in everything. You know, it's like I don't understand.
And the logos is human.
Yeah, and when you model the logos is in everything. So you model the logos models you, or is represented in you, in all things. So everything you do is representative of it. It's like Christians who get too anxious about all this stuff. And it's like, this is all part of the plan, right? Like we know how this ends,
right? And
you're all part of the plan. So like it doesn't mean that, and that doesn't mean like Jesus take the wheel, but kinda like sometimes, sometimes it does, in a metaphorical sense.
Faith is works. So if you have faith, start doing the works.
Matt, I should get going and go do
It's
be a
been an
dad.
hour and a half.
Yes, I thank you for taking me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing this suddenly.
Anytime.
So you can go ahead and jump off if you want, and I'll just do the plugs and stuff.
Thank you, folks.
I just want to. Yeah, thank you, Jason. Go check out the 2-Bit podcast. You guys are going live tomorrow, right?
Yes, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Perfect.
I think. Yeah. It's a new time zone for us.
So to address the title here, Red Caesar, person or persona, essentially the idea that I've been playing with and that I want to kind of implant in your mind, I guess, is Red Caesar, or Caesar, if you want to be specific that way. Caesar is not something to wait for. It's something to begin manifesting in your day-to-day behavior. It's going to be an emergent property. Whatever the Caesar is going to be an emergent property from the collective behavior of the relevant people. So you have an opportunity to play a role in that. You have an opportunity to manifest that, but it means you have to begin acting like a Caesar in your own life. And I suppose this message is more for our female contingent in the audience has been increasing, which is a good thing, I think. But this message here is primarily for men. Men have to begin acting like the Caesar over their own household, the Caesar over their own life. One of the things that Caesar is responsible for is increasing the value of his kingdom, of his domain. He's responsible for upkeeping it and expanding its potential by increasing the value of it. There's traps in that, which is why it's so important that you be grounded in the Logos. Everything that you do is ritualized. Certain rituals are much more powerful than other rituals. That's not to say that the Christian rituals are simply a technique. They're not magic. They're an incarnational reality that you can participate in, where you can participate in the life of Christ and you align your life with him. He being the logos of creation, the organizing principle of all reality. And if you align yourself with the organizing principle of all reality, if you begin embodying it yourself, then he is manifested even more into reality. This itself is a positive feedback loop. And once you do that, then everything that you do becomes grounded in that. And this is the role of Christians. This is taking the gospel into all the world. is ensuring that everything you do is grounded in the Logos, and then being very intentional about everything that you do and focusing on building and creating. Because building and creating is what humanity was created for. This is how we are icons of Christ, by embodying his creative, productive spirit. Most foundationally, in the literal level, by procreating. But another type of creation is innovating in the space of business, art, ideas, tech. All of these things are all proper Christian disciplines. We've suffered for a long time without an incarnational Christianity in the West, but that's on the rise. And I think that it properly integrated Christianity is going to be manifested in not just in the things that you're already doing, but in the things that you choose to do that you aren't already doing. So this could be replacing unproductive hobbies with productive hobbies. It could be changing a unproductive career for a productive career. It could be forming a community or joining a community to do something productively, thinking creatively, and manifesting that creative spirit in a positive, productive way that solves problems for other people and also ensures that you're able to take care of your own family and provide for them, and to build a world, to plant trees that your grandchildren will get to sit under. I think this is the other hand of this neo-traditionalist spirit that Jason has been talking about. We showed that the video of the guy with the dating app, where on the surface you have this very warm, bright, soft, lots of oranges and yellows and very warm hues, and then on the underbelly of it is this really dark, cold, dank, sterile, digital, creepy underbelly. I think that's the aesthetic of that video just perfectly encapsulates, I think, what Jason is talking about with this really bizarre neo-traditionalism that's going to arise. And I think that instead of there's a very common instinct, at least as of late, with Christians, right-wingers, conservatives, kind of this general group of people, to see something like that and try to go to war with it. Try to prove how fake it is or how wrong it is. But I don't think that's productive, especially in the digital age. I think we need to capitalize on that spirit. Point out where, like, when people are sharing these memes ironically, share them sincerely. Make it popular to be a proponent of these traditional values and this traditional aesthetic. Lean into it. Promote it. Because both of these things come together. You're going to get the hollow, artificial version of it, but then you're also going to get a revival in the authentic presentation of it. And lean into that authentic presentation. Don't worry about the inauthentic presentation beyond what you need to know just to recognize its implications and, maybe to caution someone not to fall for it. Because I think, honestly, the Civil War meme that's starting to go around with this video and people talking about this sort of the regime clamping down in this hot sort of way, I think that's far less threatening than the prospect of an incredibly compelling, very dignified, clean, sharp, compassionate presentation of what appears to be conservative Christianity ascending to power. I think that's probably very likely. I think it's very likely that while I want to see a so-called Red Caesar, I think there's a very good chance that that Red Caesar winds up being a trap. And a lot of people will fall for it. It's basically the archetype of the Antichrist. The Antichrist doesn't come in like riding on a goat, drinking blood, and with horns and a pitchfork. The Antichrist is a very persuasive, compelling person that deceives even the very elect. So I think it behooves us to be able to take the good and identify and not be sucked in by the latent evil. I think the doom pilling stuff about the horrifying apocalyptic scenarios, there's just absolutely nothing productive about it. In the video that Jason mentioned earlier, it's if you look up James Polis, he had a conversation on Blaze TV with Walter Kern. And Walter Kern pointed out that he's spent a lot of time studying the people that are really back from the 70s, the people that are following the radio and getting really into conspiracies and all the different conspiracies. And he pointed out that there was, with great irony, that there was a lot of these people who were just frantic about all this impending doom that wound up living into their old age and dying of natural causes. And I think what he pointed out was very apropos, which is that it's a sign of a weak mind to embrace and boo-hoo about these apocalyptic scenarios. It's actually a way of kind of putting your mind at rest, because then you justify this being completely out of your control. There's nothing you can do about it. And you're purely just a victim being swept along with it. I think that's very true. I think that there's blackpilling is just the most spiritually bankrupt practice that you can participate in. There's nothing productive about it at all. You got to have hope. And there's plenty to hope for. Anyways, you guys can join the King Pilled Supporting Listeners group. I'm going to do a voice chat here in a little while. I'll hop in there probably within the next 30 to 45 minutes after we finish going live here. We'd love to have you. We've got some really interesting plans, particularly on the, let's say, the front of technological innovation and what a community can look like and what a digital community can do. And we'd love to have you in now. If you get in before we actually launch the community, which has gotten delayed and then got delayed and then got delayed again. But we had a major step forward here recently. So if you get in now, then you'll be automatically grandfathered in, given an opportunity to experience all the benefits that are to come with it later on. So go over to subscribestar.com/kingpilled and sign up. Just sign up at whatever tier you want. You'll get all the benefits of the access for now and going down the road. We'll be sunsetting the Subscribe Star eventually and moving you guys over to a different model. But for now, that's the best way to get in there. And you can follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. Follow Cooper on Twitter at CooperBrooks. And like the show, share it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Most of the people that watch, I don't remember the exact analytics, but it's something like 70% of the people who watch the video are subscribers. So we need more non-subscribers seeing this stuff, which I can do some of that. We can do some of that, but I also need your guys' help with that. I need you guys to share this out, talk about the show, share it with a friend, post it on social media. I know with a lot of social media, it's kind of hard because you get suppressed if you post links to an external platform. But whatever help you guys can do, it's fantastic and very much appreciated. And again, 2-Bit Podcast, go subscribe over there. Become a channel member to their show. I can tell you it's very worthwhile. They do some really good members-only streams. And they've got some really fun stuff planned as well. I've had some good conversation with Jason about that. Sorry, I'm burping. 2-Bit says he'll be in the King Pilled voice chat later tonight as well. So you can come chat with us directly if you would like. That's all for now. And I don't know if we're going to do... Oh, we're not going to do a show tomorrow, I don't think, because, number one, 2-Bit will be streaming, and we want to be in the... make sure we're not stealing from his audience. I think he's surpassed our audience now. But we don't want to steal what little bit we have. We don't want to make you guys conflicted because I know there's a lot of overlap. So what we will be doing is Cooper and I are going to be going on Counterflow with Buck Johnson. We're going to be recording the show tomorrow, and it'll probably be posted next week sometime, so be on the lookout for that. Which reminds me, you can also, if you prefer to consume this via podcast, if you don't like watching on YouTube necessarily, we do have the podcast. Stuff is uploading. If you're on Apple Podcasts, for some reason, it's still stuck on the old thumbnail. We don't have the new logo up. I've tried uploading it. I don't know what it is. It's kind of low down on the priority chart right now. So, but you can go subscribe on any of your podcatchers and you can get the show there. All right. Enough for now. Thanks, guys. We'll